Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you do me a favor and look around the room and just make eye contact with as many people as you can in the room? Yeah, just take a look around the room and make some eye contact.
I want to look in your eyes, Earl.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Me too.
I'm so glad. I'd like you to take a breath right now where I do a little short centering deal for us to bring our energy into this afternoon. I want to ask the Holy Spirit, the loving right mind within me, the part of me that's connected to the part of me that loves me completely and loves you completely. That part of us that created us here today in innocence and in love, even though we forget it sometimes because of the things that we've gone through and the things that we've learned and the things that we believe. That part of us that knows that we only deserve the prosperity and abundance and love. That's our divine right, no matter what we did on prom night. That part of us that knows that. We are asking that part of us to communicate to us for an hour. Just for an hour. We are willing to suspend some of the mind chatter that we do all the time just for an hour. We're willing to admit that we don't know. We may not know everything. We're going to pretend for an hour that we may not know everything. That it may not be exactly the way we made it up to be. So I'm going to start out by giving you, as you breathe, close your eyes for a minute, I'm going to give you the first step in awakening. The first step in awakening is finding some nice, really incredible place, hopefully with some music, your favorite kind of music. And in order to start the first step to awakening, it's important that you shake your booty sometimes and move your body in joy. Get out of your head all the time. So the first step in awakening is to allow your mind this axiom of truth. Nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside of you. Nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside of you. Nothing that you experience is being created by anything outside of you. If you're serious about changing everything, if you're serious about being happy, if you're really sincere, the first axiom of truth is nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside of you. You experience only the effects of your own choice. Nothing that you experience, that thing you were thinking about before you got here, that thing that's keeping you from having peace right now, nothing, not one single thing you are experiencing right now, nothing that you are experiencing right now is being caused by anything outside of you. Nothing outside of you is causing what you are going through right now. You experience only the effects of your own choice. You experience only the effects of your own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to even like what you're saying right now. That has absolutely no effect on the truth of it whatsoever. So feel free to have all the emotional responses you like to have to anything that I might say today, but it won't change the truth of it. You experience only the effects of your own choice. One day that's going to be the greatest news that you could ever allow yourself to experience, because it would mean that you're not the victim of anything that you think you are going through right now, which means anything that you're going through right now could be changed. It could be changed today. It could be changed today. It could be changed in an instant. Nothing you experience is caused by anything outside of you. Now, those who don't mind saying that with me, some might want to just listen, that's perfectly okay. Nothing that I experience is caused by anything outside of me. Nothing that I experience is caused by anything outside of me. Nothing that I experience is caused by anything outside of me. Take a breath. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. I experience only the effects of my own choice. Now, think about a situation that you've used in the last 24 hours to give you less than peace. Think of, in case you can come up with one. I know it's going to be a strain, but go for it. Try to think of one thing that you know you gave your peace away about in the last 24 hours. And then tell yourself, I experience only the effects of my own choice in this situation. I am experiencing only the effects of my own choice in this situation. I am experiencing only the effects of my own choice in this situation. Take a breath. Let yourself have that again. I am experiencing only the effects of my own choice in this situation. Anybody care to share what they felt when they said that? Whether they felt resistance or willingness?
I feel celebration.
And out of that, would that be in the realm of willingness? Okay. All right. Good. Anybody else? Resistance or willingness?
Resistance.
Thank you. That's all you have to say. Anybody else?
Resistance.
Thank you.
I felt tremendous hope.
Willingness or resistance? Which one did you
Willingness.
experience? Thank you. Willingness or resistance?
Willingness.
Willingness.
Resistance.
Willingness. Resistance. Would anybody care to share what they were feeling resistance about so that I can maybe give you a different way of looking at it?
I'm afraid I'm going to feel something I don't like.
Mm-hmm. Would you be willing to entertain the idea that you're already feeling something you don't like?
Yeah.
So it really would be nothing to be afraid of because it wouldn't be anything different from what you're already experiencing.
Good point. Thank you.
You're already there.
Yeah.
You know.
Damn.
Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. I know. Yeah, I know. The one thing about this class is ridiculous because it makes you all right where you are, and we can't stand for that in America.
I know.
That's right. Anybody else would care to share what they felt resistance
I don't
about?
like the responsibility of inflicting pain on myself. Like saying, okay, I'm the one who's doing this. I don't like the responsibility of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Mm.
Similar. If that statement is true, then I am absolutely 100% fully responsible for my experience, and I can't blame anyone anymore. Yeah.
I know. That blaming somebody, that's some sweet poison. You know, it feels so good for a minute. You know, it's like, oh, it's your fault. The Course in Miracles talks about how the world is designed to make you always say it's something outside of yourself that's causing how you're feeling. And that the world agrees and supports you as long as you take that perception. But the minute you take the perception of responsibility is when it looks like the world opposes you tremendously. Mm-hmm. There are people who would get angry at you for saying that you are the one that is causing the experience, because that would mean tacitly that they are the ones who are also causing their experience. So this is not necessarily a statement that the world's going to jump up and down around you to hear. So what I've learned over the years is that the easiest way to apply the truth, would you mind closing that door for me? Thank you. That the easiest way to practice the truth is to silently apply it to your own thinking without saying anything to anyone else as much as possible, unless it's someone that you're inwardly led to do it with. And in most cases, if spirit guides you to give information or advice to someone, you won't even be aware that you did it. Consciously selected advice to others is what puts them in better situations. When you sit down and you decide what's the best thing for somebody, you might be getting ready to do them in. There's people in therapy right now from your advice. So you might want to consider thinking you know what's best for anyone. We don't know what's best for anyone.
That's good.
No one. No one. So, like, if you know you're getting ready to share something I've said today with someone who's going to think you're insane for saying it, that's a reflection of your own doubt about what you've heard, and now you're looking for validation about how crazy you are for even thinking this. So then you'll say it to somebody who will say, you're crazy for even listening to that. That's a reflection of your own disbelief in what you're hearing. So many times when people decide it's time to wake up and that inner alarm clock and spirit goes off, one of the ways that they delay themselves is every time they get the new information that inspires them, they try to go share it with someone else who they know will not accept it as true or understand what they're saying, which is their own attempt to stop themselves from their new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Makes sense.
what's cool about that statement that I'm responsible for what I experience is that I can change it. If I'm responsible for your experience, then you got to change me. And I promise you that's hard. It's going to be harder than changing you. Just try it. See if you can change me as quick as you can change you. You're going to lose. I promise you, you're going to lose. I bet you $1,000 you're going to lose. Okay? So the world sets it up where we think our happiness is determined by being able to get someone else to change their way of thinking or being. It's called the dumbass plan. It's out there in the universe. The DA plan. Okay, so anybody else, willingness or resistance? Again, all your feelings are valid.
My resistance came from the relinquishment of control, which is funny because, you know, checking out the results that I get from my plans and designs, but yet I still don't want to let go of that control sometimes.
Right.
I want to ensure the results.
Right. 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 That's why I go ahead and make my plans, even though I know that none of them are going to turn out. So that my ego won't be freaking out. So I'll act like I got a plan for today. I got it all in right now on my phone. My smartphone has plans for today. You know, it's my way of deceiving myself that somehow or another the part of me that doesn't even know what's going to happen 5 minutes from now is in control of something. That the part of me that only can remember the past and then try to use the past to determine the future is the part of me that I should listen to all day. A past that taught me I was less than innocent. A past that taught me I was less than powerful. A past that taught me I was separate from God. A past that taught me I could go to hell. I should listen to that part of me to determine what my future is going to be. But I promise you, if you use the present moment to go back to the past, to recreate it in the future, you're just going to repeat the same thing you've already done, but you're going to do it in a new flavor for the sake of variety. So it'll be another person, but you'll have the same experience with them that you had with the last one. It'll be a new job, but you have what's that experience that you had in the last one that you have in this one? You didn't feel complete peace. You didn't feel complete fulfillment and joy and connection to source. So that's not a new experience unless you have that, you know. So the lesson I want to cover today in the course is called, it's a workbook lesson. It's lesson 721. And those of you who have a challenge with religious terminology, my heart goes out to you. This book is written in Christian terminology, but it's not typical meanings of Christian terminology. It's really talking about universal spiritual themes. And this, to me, this lesson, if a person was to get this lesson, their entire lives would be shifted at an unbelievable level. It's simple too. Now, when the Course in Miracles says salvation, it says that term means healing. That term means right-mindedness. It means forgiveness. It means perfect happiness.
What word is that?
Lesson 721 on page 121 in the Course in Miracles text.
Salvation.
Only God's plan for salvation will work. That's the name of it. Only God's plan for perfect happiness will work. And another word for God would be the universe. Another word for God would be love. Another word for God would be the creator. Another word for God would be spirit. You could use goddess. You could use any little word that feels right to you. So please, if you need to transpose to hear this, feel free to do it. The Course in Miracles is only ever talking about love or fear. So if you want to do a quick English translation of anything in this book, it's only talking about what? Love or fear. So that would be, so only God's plan for salvation will work would be what? Only love's plan for salvation will work. And would salvation be something that would, in its right perception, be something associated with love, or would it be something associated with fear? Love. If it was loose, okay, so you could say only love's plan for love will work. See the difference? All of a sudden, only God's plan for salvation will work. Only love's plan for love will work. Only love's plan for happiness will work. Only the Creator's plan for happiness will work. Does that mean only the Creator's plan for happiness will work if it says only the Creator's plan for happiness will work? Does that mean only the plan that's based on love, real love, will work and no other plan will work? Mm-hmm. Okay, we clear about that, right? Yeah. Okay, so now the ego, the Course in Miracles uses the term ego all the time. Ego is simply the fearful thought in your mind that you identify with. It's that idea that you're separate from source. The idea that we're separate. That idea, I tell you what, if you look around the room, you're seeing your ego in the sense that you're seeing the reflection of an idea that we're separate. Not only do I think I'm separate, I got a body to prove it that I call my body. And you have a body to prove you're separate called your body. Have you ever wondered where the separate bodies and minds that seem to be in here come from? They come from the idea of separate body minds. It's not really that complex. How do we know we wanted to have the perception of being separate? We are. In our perception, we are. Could it be that simple? Now, do I remember it? No, because if I remembered it, then I wouldn't take it so seriously. And I change it in an instant. So sometimes in order, like the best actor is the one they said loses himself or herself in the role. We're the best actors ever. We've completely lost ourselves in our roles of men and women who are separate, out here trying to make it on our own, trying to not be victims of circumstance or something outside of us. We've mastered it to the point that you actually think you are a mother or a father or a grandfather or a grandmother or a husband or an employee or whatever label that the world has given you to describe who you are so that you continue to do the dance that keeps you in pain and me in pain. It's a trick, y'all. But it's a trick we're playing on ourselves. But we have an inner alarm clock that only lets us be in a trick bag for so long. And so now we've gotten to the point that our inner alarm clock has gone off and it sounds something like, what the hell is going on around here?
That's right.
That's the way your alarm clock sounds. How did I do what? I have reached my limit. I have had it. Could you imagine that if your alarm clock went off every morning and went, I have had it, I have had it, I have had it, until you get up and shut it off. So if you have reached your limit in some area of your life, your inner alarm clock for happiness has gone off. And that's where I'm at in my life, so I assume that the people that Spirit is sending to this class are absolutely in the same place that I am. And if you've attracted a new relationship, or if right now you find yourself being attracted to some new relationship, you're getting ready to hook up with the person that matches your patterns perfectly. In case you want to know who they are. They're the person who matches your patterns perfectly. They're the person that you call, I really want to spend time with, I really want to feel connected with, I'm thinking about them all the time, I want to be with them all the time. You're getting ready to meet your pattern perfectly. And if they feel the same way about you, then they have met their pattern perfectly in their perception, and so you now have a relationship made in heaven to the ego. So that person is going to perfectly mirror back to you your own ideas about yourself that you're not aware of. Isn't that wonderful? To get you not wait to see them? I have some cool patterns, so I'm glad that I can meet some people that perfectly match my loving patterns. Patterns is a neutral term. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's something bad because you're getting ready to meet your pattern. But if you felt kind of scared when you heard that, you know what you think your patterns are. You think they're fearful. You think there's something in you that's not too cool if that was a frightening thought. So that's why I live alone, because I don't want to meet my patterns. And I like to have a lot of peace, and sometimes I want a vacation from dealing with my mirror. And those are called periods when you tend to be what you call single or unattached in your experience versus periods when you think you're connected with somebody. One is rest, the other is work. Unless you're ready to do what? Say, now here's the easy relationship. The easy relationship would be one where you're in a relationship with someone and something came up and they said something like, nothing that I'm experiencing right now is being caused by anything that you're doing. It's something within me right now that's making me feel this way. But I really want to communicate with you what it is I'm telling myself about you right now, and hopefully you can give me another way to look at it before I put your bags out in the street. In other words, see the difference. Now, imagine me thinking you did something to me, and I walk up to me and say, you low down so-and-so, here you are again doing something to me. You just hurt me. See, you always mistreating me. See the difference between I'm making myself feel really upset with you right now about what's going on, and I really I'm making myself upset about it, and I really would like another way to look at this, because this is not really the way I like to experience you and me right now. That will simply deflate a person's defensiveness to a level that it'll blow your mind. But an unconscious person, that just means a person that's not aware of how the truth operates, who's bought into the world's idea that everything is being caused from outside of themselves. They begin by blame at the very beginning, hoping that they can create enough guilt in the person that the guilt will make the person do what they want them to do. So a person who doesn't know the truth is constantly trying to use guilt and anger to manipulate those around them to do what they want so that they can feel happy. A person that is beginning to know that they deserve to be loved takes full responsibility for the effects that they're going through right now, because they're willing to say what I'm going through right now is the effect of some choice that I'm making right now. So all you got to do is get to the point where you say to yourself, I have done this to myself. I did it. I must correct it. No one is to blame. The world is innocent. I have done this to myself. I did it. I must correct it. No one is to blame. The world is innocent. He said, at some point, you're going to get to the point when something happens, you're going to go, I did this to myself. My goodness, I did it. I must correct it. No one's to blame, not even me. No one's to blame, not even me. The world is innocent. This situation is innocent. At some point in your spiritual life, you're going to get to the point that when the truth is spoken, you won't go to sleep. You actually want to hear it, because you know that it'll get you out of what you're going through right now. But at the same time, if you are, you'll know that your real self is hearing the truth that needs to be heard without your ego interfering with it, except if you snore. Now, so even when you think you're unconscious, your real self isn't. And it's like your real self brought you to the class, not the part of you that thinks it's a human in the world trying to make it and that this is insane. In case anybody's wondering how they got here in the first place. Some people come to my class, they don't know how they got here or why they got here. But it was another part of them that brought them. The part of them that wanted to hear someone sit in front of them and say, you're a powerful being and nothing that's happening to you is being caused by anything outside of you. Your experience is coming from your choice. You did it, you're innocent, you're the unlimited child of God, you deserve to be perfectly happy. There's some part of you that wanted to hear you aren't guilty. That part of you brought you to the class. That part of you that think you are accuses me of being a liar for even saying that to you, and that everything I'm saying is untrue. And I know that as I sit up here also, but I don't care about that part of you. And I don't care about that part of me. It's got enough attention and it's got enough energy. I ain't giving it no more. Not me personally. I know there's a crappy part of each and every one of you. And there's a crappy part of me that does things that is less than loving. I admit it, and I'm no longer going to let it determine my choices as much as I possibly can. Sometimes I still am going to make mistakes. That's just part of being to learn. So I'm going to stop crucifying myself for mistakes that I make in the process of choosing to awake so I can move faster. Okay, so I want you to know, and I said this in a lot of my classes, I have all the ego qualities you have. I also make errors. I get angry. I get depressed. I go through everything anybody else goes through. I intend to do what I think is the right thing, and it doesn't already happen. And you know what? I'm choosing to see it differently, so I'm giving myself a break, and I'm not going to beat myself up because I'm not perfect in this level. And I would love it if you all would do the same. I would love it if you would just go ahead and admit you're not where you think you are, but you're probably further than you imagined you were. That doesn't mean that anything. I would like you to take a minute and think about your possessions, your house, your apartment, wherever you stay right now. Just take a minute and think about what you consider to be your possessions. Okay, you got it? Okay, now I'd like you to imagine all of those possessions being taken away. Every single possession that you think you have be taken away. Okay? Now I want you to ask yourself this question. Did it take anything away from you? Are you still there? Are you any less? Because that TV is gone. Apply that. Think about a relationship. Think about someone you may be pining for that's no longer in your experience because you learned as much as you could from each other at the time, and it was best that you all separated. That's what always happens when relationships seem to change form. It's just you learned as much as you could from each other at this time, and now it appears that you have to separate in order to heal. Okay, so if in the pain, the extra pain comes from not doing that soon enough. That your plan was to stick it out forever. The plan was for you to learn what you learned from them and then appear to separate. But you've decided that's not the case. So now you're going through extra pain about it. Now, ask yourself, if that person or situation isn't there, is there anything less of you? Are you any less you? And if you ask yourself that honestly, you'd have to say, no, it's still the you that thinks it missed that person or whatever, right? But that you is still untouched. So actually, you didn't lose anything. That's one of the first steps to feeling complete. That's one of the first steps to filling that hole that we look for other people to fill. Is to imagine for a minute, you had everything that you thought you owned in value taken away, then ask yourself, am I still here? And you'd have to say yes, which is a way for you to know nothing outside of yourself has anything to do with your wholeness, nothing to do with your completeness, other than the effects of your own choice to see them as causing your joy. So this lesson is about our plan. So I'm going to read this in a way that will, I think makes it more easier to hear in conversational and fun. It says, you may not realize that the part of you that thinks is in charge has set up a plan for happiness that's in opposition to God's. So there's a part of me that's come up with a plan that's opposite to God's plan. And then the chorus says, and this is the plan you believe in. The plan is opposite to love. He says, since this plan is the opposite of God's plan, that would mean that you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of your plan is to be damned. Like, in other words, if I listen to what the truth says, as opposed to what I've determined is going to make me happy, somehow or another I'm going to lose. Some people think if they practice the truth or listen to the higher self or listen to God, that they're going to have to sacrifice something that they really want to do. So the whole idea of listening to the Creator really is, that means I'm not, especially with all the unreal restrictions that we were taught about God's will when I grew up, and how I grew up in religion. It's like everything I liked was against God's will. It's like every friggin' thing I like to do was somehow bad or a sin or something. It's like, so I realized that subconsciously I developed the belief that to follow the truth is going to somehow make me not have a good time. It's going to keep me from having joy. Anybody relate to what I'm saying now? Okay, then it says, well, guess what? This sounds preposterous. Of course. He said, yet, after we have considered just what your plan is, the plan of fear, the course calls it, it says, just after we consider what your fear plan is, perhaps you will realize that however preposterous your plan may be, you do believe in your plan. I got a plan and I believe in it. How many of y'all got full of plans for how you think you're going to have happiness? Anybody here willing to admit you've been thinking about your plan today at some point? Like even before you got here, you got a plan for today. Okay, so Now, the Course in Miracles, it says, when I'm talking about plans, I'm not talking about your plan to be the president of your own company. I'm not talking about your plan of losing 10 pounds. It says the ego's plan, which is the fearful plan, which is the guilty plan. So let me give you a quick thing about what the Course says that you don't believe, and that you don't have to believe, which is that guilt makes you feel separate. So therefore, feeling separate from love and feeling separate from each other is the problem. Agreed that at some level we feel separate from love, separate from each other, may feel separate from our Creator, right? So why? Well, the Course says guilt and fear are the reason why you feel separate. And you know that's true. When you feel guilty about something, you separate. You feel guilty about a person, you tend not to want to be around them. Guilt makes for separation. So the part of you that wants to be separate has to keep you feeling a certain level of guilt and fear in order to maintain your separation and your separate self. That sounds so simple that it might go right past you, because it went past me when I first heard it. If separation, if there's a part of me that wants to be separate Earl Purdy, there's a part of my mind that wants to be separate Earl Purdy, but it does it the wrong way. It tries to be separate Earl Purdy by making me feel afraid of you, separate from you, and guilty about you, and afraid of God, separate from God, and guilty about God, and afraid of me, and separate from me. So I feel separate, I feel alone, I feel on my own. So the ego's plan for happiness centers around holding grievances. So if you want to know what the part of you that creates your conflict plan is, I want to know the plan of the part of me that don't love me as much as I want to understand the plan of the part of me that does love me. Do you know why? Because if I'm aware of the plan of the part of me that doesn't love me, I can head it off at the pass. I can choose not to follow that. I can see how some of you started a relationship. When you first got in a relationship, it would take you 2 years to realize that you were making an error in your judgment. Yeah. and then you would get down to 6 months. All of a sudden you realize, hey, this might not be the best thing for me right now. I've learned as much as I can. Then you find yourself doing it in a week. You go out and then the relationship goes up in smoke in a week. You think it means you're worse than ever, but it actually means you're doing better than ever. Because if it's something that's not good for you, I'd rather find it out sooner than later. Okay, now, then it gets to the point where they'll say hello and you'll say goodbye. It won't even be much said, you know what I'm saying? You won't even have to send it. Just a part of you that knows that this is a good lesson, but I ain't ready for it right now. You know. So the Course in Miracles says that we have a plan that's based on holding grievances. Somehow me having a grievance against my father is going to really make me feel good. It's going to make me feel happy. It's going to make me, somehow it's going to bring me peace to still be upset at my grandmama for what she did when I was 10 years old. Somehow or another, it's going to still be to my advantage to be holding against my mother what she did when I was a child. I got a grievances against the way black folk are treated. I got a grievance against the way white folk are treated. I got a grievances against the way women are treated. I got a grievance against how Americans treat. My plan is there's a bunch of friggin' things I'm complaining about all the time that I'm upset about, and I'm supposed to feel good.
Amen.
Okay, this is really supposed to make me feel good. Okay. So the Course then says, and let me explain, because people say sometimes when they read the Course in Miracles, I don't understand what it's saying. It just means what it says, and that's what makes it hard. It just means what it says. Because it'll go on and it'll say, well, in case you're wondering, it says, a grievance, the ego plan, the fearful plan, maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. You would be happy. If what? Somebody spoke differently. If somebody just spoke to me differently and they talked to me differently, then I'd be saved. I'd be happy. Do you know if my boyfriend just acted a little bit differently, I'd be happy. If my child acted a little bit differently, then I'd be happy. If the people on TV acted a little bit differently, I'd be happy. If Oprah would stop talking that crazy stuff she's talking, I'd be happy. If, you know, it's like, let me point out, if someone else spoke differently, and this is the good one here, acted differently. If somebody else acted differently, I would be, if he just acted kinder, if they just acted with more respect, if they didn't play that music so loud, if they didn't dance that way, if they didn't dress that way, if they didn't, I'd be saved. I'd be happy. Anybody recognize this? Am I alone in this? Talk to me, brothers and sisters. Am I the only one? You understand? Heard this script? How many of you are acting it out in some area of your life right now and you will admit it? Absolutely. And even you didn't raise your hand, we know you're doing the same thing too. So you get full participation in my class. If you don't raise your hand, you're doing it. Because you'd have to be completely in denial to say you don't. It's just that simple. You just have to be completely in denial to say that you're unhappy at any level, and in some way you can't relate to something you wish was acting different or speaking different or being different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll hold this. When I finish the paragraph, I'm going to give you a chance. Okay. All right. Okay, now it says, what happens when you maintain that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved? If you're reading along with me, I'm helping you learn how to read the course, because the course reads so simply that people find it hard to read. It's not complex because it's assuming you don't know what it's talking about. And so it anticipates the questions that you're going to have before you have them. So if you keep reading it, it answers the question that that it was anticipating you were going to ask. So when you're reading the course, you just keep going whether you understand what you read or not, and you don't stay on one thing until you think you understand it. That's the slowest way to study a Course in Miracles. So if you want people to say, well, I'm not going to read this paragraph until I get it, you might be there for 200 years. Because you understand exactly what it's saying. You're just not ready to accept it yet. Everybody here understands if somebody else spoke or acted differently, then I'd be happy. It's not a person in this room don't understand that concept. So what's that? And then the Course then goes on to say, well, what are you maintaining? Well, you're maintaining that the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside yourself. You're saying the source of your healing is outside yourself. If somebody else spoke or acted differently, then I feel good. He says, so each grievance that you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says what? If this were different, I'd be saved. Which is the same as saying, if this were different, I'd be healed. If this were different, I'd be happy. If they just came back. If they just gave me a raise. If they just recognized my value on the job. If I could just lose 10 pounds. If I could just get that degree. If I could just look sexy enough. If I just had enough intelligence. In other words, if this were different, I'd be saved. If this were, I burnt the toast. If this were different, I'd be saved. There's a run in my stocking. If this were different, then I could be happy right now. My car doesn't start. Oh, if that were different, I could be happy right now. I got a flat tire. If that was different, I'd be happy right now. In other words, a grievance is always a declaration where you're saying, if this were different, I would be saved. If this were different, I would be saved. So what does that mean, if this were different, I'd be happy? If this were different, I'd be happy. He says, what does that mean? He says that means that the change of mind necessary for salvation, the change of mind necessary for your happiness, is thus demanded of everyone and everything except you. So the plan is, I'll give it to you simple. All of you have to change. I don't. That's the plan. I demand that you change. I demand that you act the way I'd like a student to act. I demand you put as much money in the love offering as I'd like to see. I demand that it's okay with you, the way I say things and the way I teach is in the style you approve of in order for me. You say, you got to change. You have to change. I'm demanding you to change. And when you change, I don't have to. So I am demanding everybody change but me. Now, what was your question?
Well, it's interesting because I'm having a situation right now that's exactly around this. But like my ego is dressing it up as something noble. Because like I am trying to get, there's this person that I really care about that I'm trying to like have her, I'm trying to have her get this stuff. And so I've been like sharing, like you said, not to share, but I've been sharing.
I know. If we listened to the truth, we wouldn't have no pain. We can't do that.
I've been sharing with her, and I'm like, God, if she only would get this, I would be happy.
I couldn't imagine what you mean, Chris. I couldn't imagine what you mean. You know, I love it when I got into it. Just like astrology was the thing that opened me up to my spiritual path. That's why I never attack people's particular path, no matter what it is or how strange it may seem to me, because it's what got me sitting here wanting to be more loving with all of you. And I was married at the time. My wife was a Pisces, but I didn't know it. So, and I'm a Sagittarius. My birthday is this Wednesday. So when I got into astrology, what was cool about it was, well, the Pisces has blah, 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 blah characteristic. And all of a sudden I read that and I saw that those characteristics were true of what I was experiencing. And what immediately happened was, it took that energy off of me where I was trying to change her, and it helped me just accept her for who she was as opposed to who I was trying to get her to be. And the same thing, when I read Sagittarius, this is natural for me to be this way. Oh my God, I'm beating myself up for what's natural. It's like a tiger, beating itself up for its stripes. It's like, okay, it's natural for me to want freedom, to want expansion, to want growth, blah, 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 blah. Okay, and it was. So what it did was also got me away from the idea that if I were different, I would be saved. So you'll be amazed at how the truth will come to you through everything at the point you are ready to be happy. But if you're talking to a person that's not ready to be happy, they will not hear a thing you're saying until they're ready. So that means their inner alarm clock hasn't gone off yet, maybe. So you can't make her alarm clock go off just because you wanted to. And then why would you want to set it up where her getting it is what would make you happy? Even though I totally understand it because I do that too, we all do. But I like to pose it as a question so we can hear it. Wouldn't it be a lot easier to connect with somebody who already was open to what you're already doing, and then your relationship with each other was just a reinforcement of a thought system that you both wanted to grow? I know, but that she don't have the kind of butt I like to. That's important. That's more important than the truth. The form means more than the content to an asleep mind. The appearance means more than the mind to an asleep mind. Your script means more than the reality of the situation when you're asleep. So your script is that she should do this, and if she does this, it will make it better for both of us. So in your heart, you're going, this is a noble thing. I really care about her, and it would really be good if she got into the truth because it would make her whole life happier. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And maybe she'll give me a kiss. Sometimes, a lot of times when I have an attraction to somebody, it's like the first thing I ask myself when I get through with my fantasy is, what is it for? What's the purpose? What do you really want to accomplish here, Purdy? And I'm not guilty if I say, or what I really want to accomplish is a bodily experience of pleasure. Or what I say I want to have is, I'm just being honest with myself. The whole idea of you're sinful for your thoughts, kick that thought. Because that thought keeps you from being honest with yourself because you won't admit what you really feel because you have some kind of moral judgment on it. So you'll never know what you really think when you go through that bad, good crap. It's like, no, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have a bodily experience of pleasure, but is that your purpose? That's all that really makes any difference. But the world sets it up where you have a thought like that and then you go to, well, I've been taught that's not okay, or that's sinful, or that's bad, or blah, 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 blah. That's to keep the separation going. So now you're telling yourself, if I didn't have these kind of thoughts, I would be happy. Deep in it. So I can share with you that what's probably going to happen since you've asked to know the truth in your life is that the universe will probably never support her into changing because you want her to in order for you to be happy, because that would be reinforcing the ego's plan and further taking you in the wrong direction. So the more you attach to the outcome, the less the universe really supports that idea, because it would really be supporting something that's not true, which is that your happiness comes from outside yourself. So when you're trying to make something happen because you think that if that happens, that's going to make you happy, one of the reasons why we seem to have to work so hard to do that is because when you try to change everything to suit you, then you have to do that by yourself. And so now it looks like you're trying to come up with your plans you're having trouble with, and then you're trying to get everybody else to cooperate. You're right, you're on your own. You're always on your own when you're acting against the truth. And the truth is your happiness has nothing to do with anything other than accepting the truth for yourself, and in that process you will draw to you and through people that same quality without trying to manipulate them into it for your own personal happiness. So you still win, but you win from the right mind as opposed to the fearful mind. Does that make sense? In other words, as you get this, then if you truly get it, it will be reflected back to you in your environment, and you'll be surrounded by people who are also wanting to head in that direction. Also, that's the easy way. But what happens is when we see a person, we have a personal agenda, and so then we're trying to manipulate them so that we can get our own personal agenda done. Is everybody with me on that? Yeah. It's like one of the easiest axioms you could go by if you got the nerve to do it is that if it's light and it flows, then that's the way you want to go. If you're constantly dealing with heaviness and complexity, you want to move in the opposite direction. That's too simple for most people. They're coming with all the reasons why the struggle is good and the pain is good and the complexity is good, but they don't know what they're doing. That they're saying to the universe, I want pain, I want struggle, I want complexity because I think I need pain and struggle and complexity in order to be happy. So you're saying to the universe, no pain, no gain. The universe goes, well, I'll give you the pain so you think you can have the gain because that's as you decree, because nothing in your experience happens other than how you decree it.
Right.
So if you go, it has to be pain for gain. The universe say yes. So you got to realize that your perceptual senses are lovely liars. They're just painting a picture back to you of what you believe, which may not necessarily be the truth, but it's what you think is the truth. So that's why you can't use your perceptions to prove anything, because your perceptions are just proving what you think. It doesn't mean it's true, but you're going to think it's true. You know, if I say all women are no good, I'm going to see every no good woman that walks the street. That's who I'm going to attract. That's who I'm going to draw. And I think I'm right about that. And you know what's going to happen? I'm going to attract the men who believe that women are no good. And then we'll sit around and have a men's group. Or when, you've seen it with women, and I've seen it with men. You get upset in a relationship, you bashing the other person, you choose the friend that's going to help you bash them. The one that'll go, oh, you poor thing, you really were mistreated. That's what if I'm hurt about something, I'm looking for the person that's going to validate my position at first. When I'm holding my grievance, I do it. We all do it. It's not that you're psychic when you say stuff like this. It's that there are no secrets. We are the same. We're not as different as we think we are. That's why it's funny thinking we have private thoughts. We all do the same thing at different times. Breathe with me, please. Breathe again. I pride myself in light classes. So this is what you want to catch yourself when you're saying, if this were different, I would be saved. If this were different, I would be saved. If this were different, I would be saved. If this were different, I would be mama. If she was different, I would be saved. That person, if they were different, I would be saved. That circumstance, you go, if this were different, I would be saved. If this were different, I would be happy. If this were different, I would be pleased. If this were different, I would be kind. If this were different, I would be loving. If this were different, I would give it to him one more time. If this were different. That's the ego's plan. That is the fear plan. That is the plan that guarantees that you will not experience the peace and the bliss and the joy and the happiness that you deserve to have. That is the plan that is guaranteed to cause you to cry. If they were different. Now, does that mean that you just should accept anything from anybody no matter what they do? You experience only the effects of your own choice. If you choose to, then you'll experience that. And knowing that truth doesn't mean that you should be a doormat. Of course not. But be honest with yourself. I would much rather a person leave me than try to change me. So if you want to be kind to me, and you think something's wrong with me, and I'm okay with me, then love me enough to go your own way. But a lot of times people they don't love themselves enough to let somebody else off the hook.
Because they don't want to look at themselves, huh?
Do you know that you could be in a connection in your life where you go, I am responsible for what I see. Love or fear. I choose the feelings that I experience. Love or fear. I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And it's either going to be love or fear. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for love or fear. And I receive as I have asked, love or fear. And then people, well, what about the event? Okay, this is what you do about the event. Say the event is neutral. All events are neutral. But it's how I see it that determines whether it's something that I feel love through or something that I feel fear through. So when you say you have 100% responsibility, it doesn't mean you were driving the car that hit somebody, and so you're responsible for that. It's not talking about a physical thing, and even though at some level you'll even see that truth. But at the beginning, it's talking about you taking responsibility for having the idea and acting on the idea that if this were different, if they were different, if I changed everything around me, then I would be happy. You are responsible for having that thought. You're responsible for acting on that idea. So that gives you the way out completely. And you'll start attracting other responsible people who will say something to you like, I'd like for you to come to this gathering that I'm doing right now, but if for some reason you can't do it, just know you're completely innocent and completely loved. Not, I invite you to do this right now. If you really were my friend, you really would come. If you didn't come, then that means you really don't care about me the way you said you did. Now, which one of those friends would you rather have? Okay, well, how are you going to have a friend like that unless you start to be like that? And how are you going to start being like that unless you start saying stuff you don't believe? You got to say stuff you don't believe at first. I'm sorry. You got to start out by saying stuff you don't believe. Like, I really believe that I'm responsible for what I'm feeling right now. Say what you don't believe so that you can change everything and have a life beyond your wildest dreams. Say what you don't believe. Are you capable of saying what you don't believe? Is there anybody here that's capable of saying what they don't believe? Is there anybody here that's capable of saying what they don't believe?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we know that's a cakewalk to say what you don't believe. That's the easiest thing somebody could possibly ask you to do. So I like to sit here and say, I recognize that my unhappiness is coming from telling myself that if this were different or they were different, then I'd be saved. See, so I just go ahead and say it anyway. Oh, okay, I'm mad right now, so I'm back to that place where I'm telling myself, if this were different, I'd be saved. If this were different, I'd be saved. You know, I'm angry. So instead of saying I'm angry, I go, if this were different, I'd be saved. That's what I'm feeling right now. If this were different, I'd be saved. That's why I'm so mad at you right now, because I'm thinking if this were different, I'd be saved. So you could use that anger to remember the truth and change everything. It's just a choice. You can either say, you did it to me, or you could say, I'm choosing this feeling. I'm mad and I'm choosing this feeling right now. I'm happy and I'm choosing this feeling right now. I could say that as easy as I could say, you're doing it to me again. But whether or not I say it depends on how free I want to be. It always goes back to how free you want to be. Always goes back to how free you want to be. If you're afraid of your own freedom, you'll create circumstances that limit you continually and then blame the outer circumstances for your own fear of expressing your own self. Thank you for listening to this much with me. Y'all give it up to you. Let's pretend like we like this. Let's just pretend like we just really love what I said today. And what I said was very helpful. This is good. This is good. All right. We're going to do the love offering right quick, and then I got something I want to complete on. And, hey, y'all, I really appreciate y'all sharing with me. This is what I do in the world, is teach. And so I try to give my best, and I appreciate what you share with me.
Say it 4 times.
Yeah, you do. You look just like me. Just like me. All right, here we go. Take a breath with me. If it's true that nothing that you experience is caused by anything outside you, then that means whatever you're going through right now can change for the better. Whatever you're going through right now can change for the better. Whatever you're going through right now can change for the better. Whatever you're going through right now can change for the better. Whatever you're going through right now can change for the better. If it's true that everything that you are experiencing is the result of your choice, then that means that the truth that is true always. So if you really want to have it easy, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to shoot some stuff out to you. You should say, whether you mean it or not, you don't have to be sincere at all, but say this to yourself. Not my will, but thine be done. 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 Take a breath. For of my separate self, I can do nothing. 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 Take a breath. Feel the music. But my Creator does all things through me. 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 Only love's plan for my happiness will work. 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 That means only God's plan for my happiness will work. Only God's plan for my happiness will work. Now, what is the purpose of repetition? That's the best way in the world to plant the seed of a new idea that you want manifested. Even if you don't believe it, the repetition strengthens the idea, and the more who share the idea, the stronger the idea becomes. So the more people you can share it with that you feel safe sharing it with, the stronger it becomes. And the more you can say it to yourself, the stronger it becomes. And all ideas manifest, and you'll begin to experience it in your life. I deserve to have all the juiciness that the universe has to offer. One time, please. I deserve to have all the juiciness that the universe has to offer, because I'm sassy and sweet.
Because I'm sassy and sweet.
Innocent and unlimited.
Innocent and unlimited.
Gorgeous and spectacular.
Gorgeous and spectacular.
Eternal and all-powerful.
Eternal and all-powerful.
I am love.
I am love.
I appreciate y'all. Thank you, 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 thank you for coming. Hugs are available, and you're going out into the lab. So remember, every time you get upset, you just ask yourself, am I telling myself right now if this were different, I would be saved? Am I feeling right now if this were different, I'd be saved? And you're going to do it. You know you're going to do it. We're all going to do it. But the cool part is how soon you can get back to, oh, that's just what Earl was talking about today. I'm telling myself right now, if this person did something different or acted different or spoke different, if this situation or circumstance would be changed, and I'd be happy, as if my happiness has nothing to do with me. And then do the other test. If all of this were gone, would I still be the hero?
Yes.
Those two things will change and transform your perception. Thank you for being gifts of God to me. Thank you, God. See you next time. Woo! Thursday at 7 o'clock, next class.
Thank you.
Thank you.